Welcome everyone to the Chessbase India show. I hope that you can listen to me and everything is okay. If you could just write to us in the chat that the sound quality and all is fine, that would be great. Today I have with me Grandmaster Vishnu Prasanna, better known as the guy who helped Adhiban finish third at Tata Steel. Vishnu, welcome to the studio in Mumbai.
Thank you, Sagar. Thank you for having me in the wonderful Chessbase studio again. And yeah, I'm excited to do the show.
Okay, so already people are joining us in, and we have a few highs from people, but I hope that all of you can listen to us well. If there are any issues, just write to us. And so Vishnu, we should, the main crux of calling you today to the Chessbase India studio is to talk about your experience as working with Adhiban at Tata Steel. How it was, because he played phenomenally, yes, finishing third. So we will come to it in a while, but before that I would say I want to change the dynamic a bit. We are talking and stuff.
Okay.
So what I would do is I'm going to start off with a challenge to you.
Challenge, okay.
Yeah, and spectators, Vishnu doesn't know what's coming up. So what I have done is I'm going to give him a position to solve right now, and he has to solve it, and it's not going to be a very easy one. So Vishnu, are you ready for it?
Yeah, I'll give it a try and see.
Okay, so it's a study which I was solving today, and it's right in front of you over here. Yeah, so this is the position that you can solve. You can see my main intention of giving this is not that you give the right answer. Of course we want that you give the right solution as well, but I want you to speak loudly about your thought process, because that would really help other people.
Okay, the first thing that comes to mind is it's a slightly irrational position and complicated, of course, and yeah, a few moves, probably F8 is the first move that comes to my mind, and there's a pawn on B3 which I have to take into consideration. Okay, the first line I see is F8, Rook F8, Rook F8, but it doesn't work because of Knight F6 check and B2.
So this is the first line that you saw.
Yeah.
And after the king moves, let's say over here,
D2, and it's no, it doesn't look very good. So this looks like a bit of a study, so there has to be some unusual motives here. So yeah.
So what you do is you start off with the most natural move.
Yeah, I mean, a move just pops into my head, I guess, and see what's wrong with that. And of course, here white has to win some material, because black has this strong pawn on b3, and for example, g into h5 wins the knight, but after king f7 and b2 again, it's obvious that white has nothing. So white has to do something unusual or something immediate to get some kind of plus here. I think I have figured it out now.
So before Vishnu can, it seems like he has got the answer already, because while he was talking, he was also thinking. I would also ask the viewers over here to have a go at this, and if at some point, you get the answer, you could type it in the chat. We can watch your messages and we would get back to you. Yeah. So Vishnu, what do you think is the right move?
Yeah, the right move is f8, and after rook f8,
okay,
g takes h5, king f7.
Yeah, this is a forced move.
Yeah, king f7 is forced. And generally, when your opponent has to make forced moves, it probably means you're in the right direction. So that was a good clue. So I think the important move here is that you have to see in advance is rook h8, I believe. Yeah.
So come on, you found this so easily. You should work hard for such tough moves.
You should find tougher studies for me in the next show, Sagar.
Yeah, that's one thing that I will have to work on, to find tough studies for Vishnu. Have you seen this position before? No. So this
but I've seen the motive. Yeah, but it's not a very unusual motive. Blocking the king.
Rook h8 and amazing. What's the idea of this move?
Of course, black is forced to. Of course, the immediate threat is rook f1 mate, and it's blocking the king after rook into h8, rook f1, king g8.
Well, we have a user Jiraya Sama who said rook h8 as well. So that's very nice. And now after rook f1,
king g8. Yeah, I think the important move is h6.
Yes.
Yeah, because we want to checkmate him, but after king e7 he has h6.
Right, and then the king comes out from here. Yeah.
So I mean it's again a prophylactic thinking, even in studies. I've been nowadays I appreciate the importance of prophylaxis after starting to teach people, and I find that even here it's very important. So h6 is again a prophylactic move instead of king e7.
Okay.
And after any move, g h6 or king e7 or g6 king e7, black cannot stop mate. Yeah.
It's a forced mate.
Yeah. On g1, it's an amazing study, but
very
pretty.
It's a very pretty one. You see, black cannot get out of this mating pattern. But Vishnu, I was looking. I was hoping that you would fall for rook into f8 over here. Did you consider this move?
King f, but rook h8 somehow feels like the right
move. I know rook h8 is the study feel, but even this move after rook f1,
I have to say I didn't consider this very seriously.
This h6 over here, the same theme is sort of working out, right? So I think over here after h6, if you take king e7 as well, there are some ideas with mating net.
But there is h6,
Yes, correct. And that's the point. You play h5 and rook g1, king h8, king f7 and h6. So guys, I will say that Vishnu is currently, although he indulges in training young kids and also I think around intermediate players and advanced players as well, he still works a lot on his game, and this is really amazing that you could solve it so easily.
I can't see anything. That's not a good thing.
Incredible says I can't see anything on the board. Is it true for everyone over here? I mean, guys, can you see what's going on the board? Because if you can't, then just write to us over here and we have to figure it out. So while we receive an answer, Vishnu, you have a question from Aryaman 2100 who says, even after becoming a GM, do you still solve tactical puzzles?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still solve studies, tactics, everything.
Okay.
And there are some short tactics that I do every day as well. My coach used to say it's like brushing a teeth for a chess player, solving those quick tactics. You can't forget to brush your teeth, and it's the same for a chess player. You can't forget to solve those small tactics. I think it's tactics trainer in chess base. That's a kind of puzzles which are not too difficult, but it will keep you alert and good wake up call for you in the morning.
Okay. So
but I also do solve other complicated puzzles.
Right. I mean, I was of the opinion that solving studies, someone told me, is like going to the gym. But you could skip going to the gym. I think brushing your teeth is a better example. You have to brush your teeth. So you do it every day, solving tactics. So Aryaman, as you can see, you have to keep solving studies all the time, or even easy positions from tactics trainers.
There is like two types of training. I mean, one is tactics to improve your calculation and stuff, but the other tactics the fast tactics or the simple ones, they just keep you tactically alert. I mean, immediately helps you spot that there is something amiss during the game, or he can help you smell tactics during the game, I guess. So I think that is equally important.
Yes. Sure. So I think we have warmed up a bit for this, and we would come to the main thing why Vishnu is over here. So Vishnu, tell us about the Tata Steel. The first thing we would like to know is how did you come in acquaintance with Adhiban, and how did you start working with him, and why did he select you?
But we had the same coach as juniors, I would say, which was quite some time ago. And we had the same coach for a long time, Vishweshwaran from Chennai. And we worked together for many years in the past, and we were just friends. So it was nothing new for us basically, and we knew each other quite well. We've shared ideas, traveled together, we've done all that together. So I think he had a good opinion of my work ethic, so maybe that's the reason he chose me.
So had you worked with Adhiban before as well, before this tournament?
Yeah, absolutely. I worked with him just as a friend, mutually, and many years before, and also recently. I also helped him online when he was playing the Tata Challengers. This year he played in the Masters, but last year he played in the Challengers to qualify. I was helping him online.
Okay. So when he qualified from the Challengers, he thought it's a good idea to work with you. To
bring me there, I suppose. And I was happy to go.
Okay. So when you reached Vaikanze and you were there as a person, how did you find the environment? Was this the first super tournament that you were so closely associated with?
Definitely. This is the first super tournament where I can, I could see them from afar before, but I can actually see what's going on over there and how these people are. And I had a 1 hour car conversation with Levon Aronian.
How did that happen?
We played a game in a different city, so we had to take the same car back, and luckily I got in the same car as Aronian. Okay. And we had this amazing conversation for 1 hour,
what was it about?
Just his experiences and how it was when he started out, and how his approach to the game, and lots of stuff. It's just how he handles other players, his approach, his psychology to the game, and stuff like that.
Okay. So in a way, you got to speak with Aronian, and that was kind of the once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, sure. I hope not once in a lifetime, but that was our first experience.
Okay, so when you went to Vaikanze with Adhiban, what were your expectations? What were you aiming at, both of you, when you went there?
I don't know what his expectations were, but my approach is generally not to have any expectations and just go with the flow. But to be honest, third was a good result, and
good is an understatement.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, I guess. But I wanted him to finish at least above 50%, I would say. Yeah.
So there were 13 rounds, and you were expecting something like 6.5.
Yeah, at least 50. I wanted him to finish at least 50%. I thought that was important.
Yes, and he did +2, which was 7.5.
Yeah.
So that was nice. So when you started off, the first round with Van Velde ended in a draw. Then the second round with Hari was a loss.
Yeah.
So things already didn't start so well, because his game with Van Velde, he was better and almost winning. So what was your role in all of this? Were you trying to boost him up, or was it more like just preparing?
Yeah, it's just anyone who knows Adhiban knows that he never needs any boosting up. He's always hyper. So I was just going with the flow there, just keeping. I wanted to maintain the same energy as him. He didn't go into bad spirits at all.
Oh, okay.
Somehow. That's just Adhiban. Losses don't bother him so much. And I was a little surprised he spoiled the position against Luke in the first round, and Hari. I was extremely surprised that he lost against Hari, actually. and I was actually hoping that he would press on in that 2 bishop endgame. But yeah, I was quite surprised, and we talked about it a little bit after the game, and we discussed what was going wrong and so on. Yeah, but yeah, he needed a couple of more rounds to turn everything around.
Yes. So I mean, the start was not the ideal one for him.
Yeah, it was not. Yeah.
And as far as I know, you already started to experiment right from the third round in terms of openings.
Third round was interesting. I mean, it was not a...
So
it was an experiment, I would say, but not as risky as the ones we took afterwards.
Yeah, I will just bring up the third round game. We don't need to see it in full. It was against Levon Aronian, and you played the London system.
Adhiban played the London.
I mean, yeah, Adhiban played the London system, but what was the logic behind choosing the London system?
Just that, you know, in the first game against Harry, Aronian finished with something around 1:30 on the clock, and he had spent like 10 minutes on the whole game. And it was a Marshall or something. We just didn't want to do something like that, basically. We wanted to make Aronian think on the board, and we didn't want to play from home. We didn't want him to just blitz out moves. And this seemed like a good system, yeah, that we could catch him in. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I was recently talking with Grandmaster Sandeepan Chanda, who is again a very strong player. And he told me that, you know, few years ago, let's say around 10 to 15 years ago, London system was played by white players to draw the games.
Yeah, I think I read this also.
And nowadays, it's being played for wins,
yeah,
or for a original position. So
Absolutely.
what's your opinion about this opening?
It's very dangerous strategically. I mean, black players have to be prepared for it. And okay, if Kramnik, Carlsen, people like that play something, especially Kramnik, yeah. So he's been unleashed to depth, and he's found something there.
Right.
Otherwise, he just wouldn't play it, I think.
Yes.
So, and it's quite complicated actually. And of course, black is okay, and there is probably more than one way for black to be okay. It's just that you have to choose which way, and you know, you have to know what you're doing there.
Okay. Right. So I mean, it's not a very dangerous opening, but you would need to know a few things about it.
It is strategically dangerous, for sure. Yeah.
And that's the reason why a lot of players in the top are playing it. As we are doing this, we have one question, intermediate question by the Stillwater, who says he has read the articles from both websites, and he says Vishnu Prasanna has perfected openings for Adhiban. It is natural for me to ask, if I am trying to learn a new opening for the first time, how should I approach it? And Vishnu, this is a question I think asked by a few more people.
Okay.
And as you are an opening expert.
Yeah, it all depends on your level basically. I would say that you would have to first understand what is the philosophy of the opening, or what you're trying to achieve from the opening. I mean, that's a basic crux. You have to know the strategical plans and ideas of the opening. And yeah, what is the plan in general, which piece to exchange, all this basic positional stuff, and then you go into the concrete variations. And of course it differs for every, and I mean the basic philosophy, by basic philosophy I mean that for example in the Queen's Gambit decline, usually if the bishop on c8 is developed, then black is fine.
Correct.
It's such a simple philosophy, but there are a lot of strategical nuances over it, and you have to know that you're fighting to develop that bishop comfortably. That's the first basic philosophy you should know for that opening. And for Grunfeld, it's that you're fighting for the center with the pieces. Just some basic strategic ideas, the basic idea with which you're developing the pieces.
Right.
And of course, where you're putting your pieces, where your pieces belong in each variation. That will take you a long way actually. I mean, in most situations, putting your pieces in the wrong place will cost you the game, and putting it in the right place will, yeah, win you points.
Sure. As you mentioned about the strategic ideas, if you don't have a coach, how do you learn these strategic ideas, and what is the best way to know? Because you say the C8 bishop is important in QGD. It's so natural for you. But what if someone is learning it for the first time?
I would recommend two things. I mean, buy an opening book on the variation, or just look at how the classical players played it.
Okay.
And you just have to figure out which are the classical players who employed it regularly. And it's just a cycle. I mean, you will again see that a lot of variations that were played in the past will come back again.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it's not like anything's refuted or anything, but it's just fashion. So if you a lot of these ideas have been played in the past. Spassky has played the Queen QGD most of his life, and I mean there is somebody for every opening, I'm sure, and you just have to look at how the classical players develop the opening, I think, and an opening book of course helps.
So you put a lot of emphasis on classical games for preparation of openings. Don't you think the theory is dynamic and changing all the time? And
yeah, the theory is of course dynamic, and but you just find different ways to solve the same problem, I think. Okay, you in the end you're solving the problem of the C8 bishop. It's just a different way you're doing it.
Right.
But the basic philosophy of the opening never changes, right? So classics, I don't read classics for openings as such, but I just read classics in general, and but of course I recommend it for my students, I would say, because generally a lot of players have changed. The King's Indian, for example, Geller has changed how the King's Indian was played.
Yes.
And Bronstein and people like that. So, I mean, you just have to know who it is and so on.
Yeah. So, yeah, look at the classics. Maybe you could use the mega database to find a specific position with the reference tab and look at old games. And this would really be the best way. As Jiraya Sama says, Kasparov's QGD DVD is awesome.
Yeah, of course. Nobody has to give a certificate for whatever Kasparov does, but yeah, that was, I believe I did watch it when I was young, and yeah, it was, even he shows the games of Capablanca and Lasker in those DVDs, so
yes.
So it's the same approach, I mean.
Yeah, he gives a lot of emphasis on classics, and I think even Carlsen does, and Vishnu does, so I guess you are in good company if you are learning the classics.
I'm also in good company in that sentence.
Okay, so coming back to Tata Steel, a draw with Aronian was kind of confidence boosting in a way.
Yes, sure. I mean, of course, yeah, we want to win every game, but yeah, draws, we are not upset with a draw, I should say. Okay. And of course, it's not never easy to beat these guys, and we were happy with the draw, and we were happy with how the game went. He was not in too much he was not in trouble anywhere. Maybe he didn't get anything special, but yeah, he was not in too much trouble also. So, and maybe he was pretending to press at some point.
Yeah, sure. So that was a draw. Vishnu, the next round was a loss. He lost to Elyanov, which was again a big setback because there was this opening where Elyanov gave up a pawn, a kind of a very weird kind of a sacrifice, and then it was an equal position and Adhiban simply slumped.
Yeah.
That would have been the lowest point of the tournament, I guess.
Yeah, one would think so, but I would just say there were no low points in the tournament for us, and especially for Adhiban, because it was a rest day after the game, and there was some dinner on that day, and it was like, we had a lot of fun actually that night.
Okay.
Hanging out with the Tata Steel company executives. There was a dinner with the company executives, and Jordan Manforest, that champion, was playing some simul against the company executives.
Okay.
And we were helping the company executives beat Jordan. So, in essence, he was playing against all these top players.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was, we actually went for the dinner and we had a good time. Adhiban, also I should mention again that he was not low after this. I would not say that he was low.
Yeah, how does he do that? I mean...
And there is a question for everybody out there, and for which I don't know the answer yet. And yeah, it's just something you have to learn. It's amazing, but that he did that.
You know, recently at the Aeroflot Open, he is performing really not so great. I mean, he's lost 4 rounds.
Yeah.
And yesterday he sent a picture on his Facebook page where he's doing something like this and he has all these plates where he's eaten. He looks so calm. I mean, for a player who reached heights of finishing third in Tata Steel and then losing like 20 rating points in the next tournament, he's still not affected like tremendously.
Yeah, I mean, of course, he's probably not happy about the result, but
Sure.
I don't think, because I think he just has the confidence that he'll win again. Yeah, and it's just a bad tournament.
Okay. So, yeah, I don't know how he does it, but it's very important to fight back, and as Adhiban always says, the best way to overcome your loss is to win.
Yeah.
And so, that's
Everyone likes his punchlines. Yeah.
yeah, he likes these punchlines, and he also likes these punch games, which was in the 5th round against Karyakin. And this is what even one of the players asked, was that, you helped, it was by Sagar Chess on Facebook. He said, you helped Adhiban prepare openings like French and Scandinavian and all. Was it your idea to play these surprise weapons? In the 5th round, he played French for the first time in his life against Karyakin.
Yeah, it was not my idea actually to play French, but I just kind of went along with it. It was recommended to him by a friend, and and of course Ubilava and Vishwesh, we all were working together. So we just decided to play it. I mean, it was a funny incident because in the game we were preparing. Okay, we didn't really decide for a long time what to play. It was a rest day, and maybe until 7 in the night we didn't decide what to play, and we were a bit confused. I showed Adhiban a few lines on a different variation where black was possibly equalizing.
Mm-hmm.
He was not very happy with that. He wanted to win this game actually, so
Okay.
and he wanted a very sharp portion. So he already decided, that he wanted to do something.
So he was playing for a win even with black.
Yeah, okay. Adhiban has better score with black than white, I believe.
Okay.
In general, the colors don't matter to him so much.
Right. So I mean, French was something that was decided. And what was your role? Like, all these different openings were put on, so let's say against Wesley So, King's Gambit, against Carlsen, Scandinavian. So what was your role? Was it like, Vishnu, come on, now I'm playing the French today? What would you work on?
The whole line, I mean, whatever he has to face that the next day. Yeah? So in the close even, you have to prepare for the opponent, and I had a sleepless night actually when we were playing Karyakin.
Yes.
Yeah, so
that was my next question. Did you ever sleep in the tournament?
I had I slept more than I expected to actually, and even Luke was joking from when we were playing these openings, Alapin, D4, D5, Bishop F4, and he was joking. After the game against Nepomniachtchi, you finally gave some work for your second, like that. Just like he was mocking me that that Alapin, I was just resting and nobody prepares Alapin and stuff like that. But French. In this game, I didn't get so much sleep, and we were going for a game in another city, Rotterdam, to play in a football stadium. So we had to leave a little early. But my job was to, go with the flow, I mean, I wasn't sure what was going to work, what was not going to work. This is my first super tournament as well. But I just wanted to enforce the guy's belief. That's if we say something crazy, I'm going to say it will work.
So you were there you were not like, come on Adhiban, French is not going to work, you have never played it in your life.
Yeah, that's what I didn't want to do. Yeah. So Adhiban is not like a typical guy. I mean, he's not a classicist, not like this will work, this will not work, and he's very open, I think, and he was ready, so I thought I should be ready as well.
Okay. So just looking at this game, a few moves, because there was a very interesting point. Did you expect that Karyakin would go knight c3?
Absolutely.
That was the only thing he plays, right? Almost.
I don't know. I think he plays knight d2 exclusively, knight c3, I think. Yeah.
Right. So,
but we were expecting the variation.
So you guys came up with this line which looks all very normal until now, everything played, and then at this point came this new move, knight to d7 back. I think b6 or queen f5 had been played before.
Yeah, b6 has been played even in Aeroflot after this game.
Right.
So by Bluba Matthias, I think, German player. And it's also interesting. But knight d7, it's always good to deviate early and have your own ideas. And Karyakin was surprised by the idea.
Yes. And this was one of your ideas?
No, it was not my idea.
Okay. So, and after knight d7 and when Karyakin was thinking a lot, I guess you already started feeling good about the choice.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this was, we didn't know what was going to happen with the French and all this confusion, yeah?
Yeah.
He was a bit rusty in the first couple of rounds, but it was still okay, and I don't know what was going to happen with the French especially. And it was, I was actually with Vidit in the room, and I didn't look at the game so much until a certain point, but I was pretty happy that Karyakin was thinking.
Right. So what were you doing during the games? Were you at the playing hall or you would be in the room?
When we were traveling, I went with him, but otherwise I would just go to the playing hall towards the end of the game.
Okay. To just go back walking with him?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. So most of the times you were catching up on your sleep while he was playing?
I would exercise a bit when he was playing and check the other games.
Okay.
I didn't sleep so much. I mean, I didn't lose so much sleep also. 4 hours is okay, I think, with 2 cups of coffee.
4 hours of sleep. That's okay for a second. So you can imagine if it's a really stressful night, you might sleep.
Some days I got more sleep. And the rest day he didn't pressure me so much. So
okay. So it was good, yeah?
Yeah. It wasn't too much. Sleep wasn't a big problem, I would say. Actually, like I said, I expected it to be worse.
So you were ready to be awake over there. You had prepared.
Yeah.
Did you prepare for this in some way at home?
No, losing sleep, that just makes it worse, I think. I'm tired before the first round when I get there.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the French turned out to be an excellent choice. Win against Karyakin, unbelievable result. And then came this game against Wesley So. I mean, unbelievable opening choice. I would say no one in their right mind would play this.
Actually, I think the opposite is true, yeah.
Right?
I mean, the guy has not lost a game in 50 games.
Yes.
What are you going to do then?
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing I came to the room and we were talking about Wesley and said play King's Gambit. And then, okay, he was like, maybe something else. And we were thinking about it for a while and then, okay, and someone else also suggested King's Gambit. And, then he said, okay, maybe King's Gambit. Then, yeah, okay, then I got to work.
So you were not like, no King's Gambit, I will have to work a lot. Yeah,
No, I wanted King's Gambit actually.
You wanted?
Yeah.
And Wesley has had no games with e4, e5, f4 in his database. So how do you work on this position? I mean, at least for Karyakin, he would go knight c3, something like that. You had an idea.
Yeah, it's just, what can I say? You just have to predict. It's understanding the opponent. And we guess that, okay, bishop c4 is not a popular move. I mean, not the second most popular move, I guess. But okay, we had our ideas here, and I would say that in a certain sense, it wasn't all about openings.
Right.
It was just asking him to show his hand.
Yes.
And what are you going to do against this? Okay, you have something with the Rai Lopez Berlin and stuff, but yeah, it's just that we wanted to take them into situations where, they are not usually.
And there, Adhiban felt he could outplay even the best in the world.
Yeah, of course. This game also we were very aggressive.
Yes.
We were playing with aggressive intentions, as the opening itself shows. But generally, I think we want to beat everybody.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, Vishnu, now a question
if I'm not being too...
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's the right attitude that you go with to beat everyone. But one question, because you work so much on the King's Gambit, if you were black and someone plays King's Gambit against you, what would you play? And what do you think is the best?
Taking is okay. Taking is the best.
Okay, taking, and then let's
I don't want to answer that question.
Okay, so you're not going to spill the beans, but you know that there is something better than what Wesley played.
Yeah, I can just say that, yeah. What Wesley played is just giving up a pawn.
Right, d5, just giving back the pawn. But also, I guess Queen h4 exists here.
Yeah, Queen h4 exists, yeah.
Right.
Steinitz has played d4 on the third move. So...
here, instead of bishop c4.
Yeah, d4, Queen h4, King e2. Steinitz,
yes. Yeah.
King is an attacking piece, his philosophy. And okay, it's, yeah.
So, okay, I'm not going to probe you more on the King's Gambit.
Thank you, sir.
But we have a question from Rahi07 who says, Hi Vishnu sir, who was the most challenging opponent to, against Adhiban for the tournament?
Challenging, okay, I don't know. It was all, we treated everybody as the same.
No, for you to prepare, that's what he's asking. Who was the most challenging guy for you to prepare against?
I mean, Karyakin maybe because that was a crucial turnaround.
Right.
And Carlsen, of course.
Yes, we will come to Carlsen.
Yeah.
So after Karyakin, you finished Wesley, you drew the game with King's Gambit, and then you were able to beat Wojtaszek in the next round.
Yeah.
Adhiban was able to beat Wojtaszek, and then after that even Andrekin. So already I think he was doing exceedingly well by the 8th round.
Yeah.
So what was the mood like? Was it euphoric or was it?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, definitely it was a big turnaround. We were waiting for the next rest day so that the same thing could happen again, and we were joking about it. So yeah, I mean, it was already, we were happy that things were working, and we wanted to continue it.
Right. Sure. Well, I would say the draw against Wei was also a good result because Adhiban was in a minus position. But from a point of view of core preparation that we are talking about, I think the game against Nepomniachtchi was concrete preparation. So can you just walk us through this line of the Najdorf, because it's so complicated. Maybe you can just tell us what's going on.
Yeah, it's a poison pawn variation, and starting with h6 is the most modern trend instead of queen b6. I think Kasparov always went queen b6.
Okay.
But yeah, h6 is possible and the more modern way to play. Okay, h6, queen b6 has its own variations, but sometimes it transposes.
Right. So okay, h6, bishop h4, queen b6.
Yeah, a3 has been the trend recently with Caruana beating Nakamura in a nice game, and Nakamura the next day beating Vachier in a nice game. So if Vachier loses in a Najdorf, then everybody is checking that Najdorf, yeah, for white. So I mean, even Anish I think Anish was the first one to pay attention to this line.
Okay.
Seriously, he brought it back, but unfortunately he lost that game. And even though Vachier didn't react properly in the opening, he just managed to win that game against Anish. But yeah, in this game, so the line came back in a little bit of...
Okay, 1 second. I need to just take care of this because this might fall off. So just remove it from the side. Okay, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
So, yeah, so this is... so this variation came back into a trend a little bit.
Okay.
And yeah, a3, knight bd7, okay, the others played bishop e7. Nepo went knight bd7 against Wei in the first or second round, I don't know.
Okay.
So we were pretty much expecting this variation.
So this is all preparation, right?
Yeah.
e5.
Yeah.
Takes, knight f5. This all looks pretty logical, I mean, till a certain point.
Yeah, even the computers, but the computers don't agree with you. So it's, I don't know if Nepo was not prepared, I don't know what he wanted actually.
So it already says white is better.
I don't know.
Ah, okay.
It's just bad position for black to be in.
Okay. So, well, yeah, I mean, I don't know what black played here.
G6.
G6.
Yeah, it's kind of, everything is kind of the only move. So knight d5, queen d5, rook and so on. So this is a game maybe I thought we should have won.
Yeah, you were already better and you drew this game.
Yeah.
And I guess there was more theory, but no point in going into too much depth, yeah?
Okay, I could just say brief things. I mean, but I would just say that it's somewhere around the way after queen f6, around move 22, I think.
This was preparation.
Yeah.
And even bishop b3.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But we knew that, I think we just knew that white was winning here. I don't know winning, but white was definitely better.
Yeah, I mean, your piece down, yet I guess the king in the center and...
king is horrible placed. It's just Tal theory of the active pieces. I mean, the rook is...
What's the Tal theory of active pieces?
I don't know. It's just my theory of how Tal thinks. But it's just that, the rook, you can't really count the rook on a8 and so on. When you're counting material, I mean.
So you don't count this rook, you don't count, let's say, this bishop?
You have to count the bishop because it's somewhat in play, but you don't count the rook because it's not in play at all.
So you're
white
exchange up?
Yeah, exchange up. Dynamically, you're an exchange up. So, yeah, but this game, I thought we would actually finish him off. But Nepo was very, very resourceful actually. I mean, not to take any credit from him. It was not easy after a point, I think.
Yeah.
He was extremely resourceful and yeah, I mean, he was tactically defending, but the most important thing was that Hariban took the draw at the right moment, yeah. I was a little worried in the inertia he would just continue to press in the wrong position.
Yes. But he was smart enough that this was enough and...
Yeah, so he had a good amount of objectivity also, so that I was quite happy with this when he repeated.
Right. Okay, Aryaman 2100 asks a very interesting question that why is Najdorf more popular than all other variations of the Sicilian?
To tell you the truth, other Sicilians don't equalize, but for practical reasons, at the top, that's why I don't think it's popular. Other Sicilians are more difficult to prepare. You have, so I mean, what can I say? It's just modern preparation is all about restricting your opponent's chances, restricting your opponent from placing bombs in different places. I mean, wherever he can kill you or stuff like that. And it's least in Najdorf compared to other lines.
Really?
Yeah.
Najdorf looks like the minefield of bombs somehow,
yeah,
I mean.
In a certain sense, but if you're working a lot on it, it's okay.
So you already know that this is dangerous and stuff if you already...
If you see when the bishop g5, it's gotten popular only in the last 6 months. They were not playing bishop g5.
Right.
I would say h3 or g3 maybe. h3 was the popular line against the Najdorf, and h3 is not like a bomb. I mean, again, it's against the flexibility of the Najdorf.
Correct.
Against every system, you have a number of systems for black also, which you don't get in other Sicilians like Taimano, Khan, or any other system. I don't know. Classical Sicilian, it's strategically complicated, but it's not an opening you can play every day, I think.
Yes.
You lose your... Yeah, and so Najdorf, for that basic reason, but if you're not a top player, you can probably play any Sicilian. If you prepare any opening well, you can play it, I think, if you're not a top player.
So any good suggestions because I know that you also play the Najdorf. Any good suggestions to prepare Najdorf if any of the viewers would like to do that?
Good suggestions,
material from where they could prepare Najdorf.
Okay. You can look at Wojtaszek's games. Vichy second.
That's Radoslav Wojtaszek, Polish #1 player.
And Nepomniachtchi. Nepomniachtchi, he doesn't always play the correct way, but he always plays his own way and his interesting way. You can't always be sure it's correct, but you can be sure it's interesting.
Okay.
So, and maybe, I don't know the recent books that are out on the Najdorf, unfortunately. I'm sure there is something out there. But, yeah, just if you follow what these guys are doing.
So I was expecting you being a classical guy to tell Fischer or Kasparov.
Yeah, absolutely. Kasparov, Fischer maybe, but Kasparov didn't play the pure Najdorf. He always went scavenger style. So maybe some games he played in the pure knight off, but if you want to go for classical stuff, it's yeah, Fischer for sure. Of course, Fischer played the poison pawn in 1960. What a tremendous level of understanding of the position. Chess in general, he had to play this move like in the 60s.
Queen into b2, yeah. I mean, what Vishnu is talking about is queen b6 here.
Yeah, just this move, just to come up with this concept and
to go for this pawn.
Yeah, to understand that this is okay for black is amazing, I think, in 1960s.
Right. Yeah, he was much ahead of his time, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, one Mad, the username Mad says, is Sozin variation good for white against the Najdorf? The one that I think Fischer used to play with white, bishop c4 here.
Yeah, it's good for white, but also good for black. I mean, against the Najdorf, it's not like you can find something that you can get an advantage against or something like that. It's a very sound opening. I mean, it's just, nowadays with computers, it's proven to be completely sound, I think. And bishop c4 is okay for white, of course, and okay for black. But it's an active system, and of course...
It's an interesting position.
Yeah.
Okay. So
there is also a Polish player. If you want to play with white, you should follow a Polish player. I can't pronounce his name right. It's probably Tomczak or something. T-O-M.
Yeah. Tomczak, yeah?
Yeah. He still believes in the Sozin, and yes, for some reason he still plays it. But objectively, black is okay. Maybe you can try it out with white. Yeah.
Sure.
And of course, Fischer played it, and Fischer liked open position, and Fischer liked to put his bishop on c4 in general in most systems.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, Najdorf is, I guess, a topic which we would invite Vishnu again to talk about, maybe...
in a few other shows.
Maybe an hour with Vishnu on the Najdorf. So, enough of Najdorf for now. Moving on to the biggest game of the tournament. That was game 11 against Magnus Carlsen. The question is, when you face Magnus Carlsen, I mean, talking from Adhiban's point of view, are you excited or are you scared?
He was motivated.
Motivated, yeah.
Yeah, he wanted to win that game actually. And so you can already see that, okay, this is not a normal guy.
Yes.
Yeah, and he really wanted to, press.
How do you explain this? Because you see, he's a world champion. He has beaten guys like Anand in match format, top like 2-8, 7-2, and you are just 26-15. How can you even think that you can beat a player like Carlsen?
It's just a mental belief, I think. I mean, it's just, it doesn't happen overnight. If you just, I think he has trained himself well mentally as well as chess. So
what does this train mentally mean?
His self-belief, I think, it's very high. So that is an important character to win at any level. So he has cemented his self-belief so high. So he's not easily intimidated, or he's not easily upset about something that happens.
And I mean, I'm just asking you, how do you build up this self-belief in you? I mean, is it something you can train, or is it something you're born with and your upbringing?
I honestly believe there's nothing. You're born with. I mean, nothing is born with you. Yeah, it's just you have to train. You have to train. Everything is training. In life, everything is training for sure. So of course there are maybe some psychologists or some programs. I mean, I don't know, but so this is the part where everything changes for everybody. Yeah, there's no good solution. If there is a formula for success, then everybody follows the formula. Everybody who has resources follows the formula and wins. But there is no specific formula, and everybody has to find their own way which drives them. And with the psychologist, with your mother, with your father, whoever is that driving element, and with yourself, with books, just whoever it is.
Okay. So there's no secret formula for building up your self-belief. It just has to happen.
You have to train for it. You have to try to figure out how it is going to happen, and you have to try to see. You have to explore with yourself. It's not an overnight thing, and it happens with the process.
Okay.
But it's just perseverance. Probably I've read some books on this as well. It's called Grit, and it's just that lots of studies and stuff have also proven that people who persevere are successful more than anything else. That is the most important quality. And so win or lose, you come back to the next day, put on your gloves and do the same stuff, yeah, in a boxing metaphor. But so you bring out your chessboard again, you do the same thing. You win or you lose, doesn't matter, you draw. So you have to persevere and continue to do the same thing. This is also what my coach told me. I mean, win or lose, you react in the same way. Not in these so many words, but he told me like there should not be any difference to a schedule based on result and stuff like that. That is not what we are trying to do here.
So you need to have a very strong system where you
Maybe Vishwesh also cultivate a little bit of that in him.
Vishweshwaran, the coach of both Vishnu and Adhiban, I think is the reason why somewhere both of you have good self-confidence.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
Okay. And while we are talking, Rakesh Kulkarni is online, and very surprisingly, he's going to play Magnus Carlsen in a few minutes from now.
Oh my God, okay. yes, I have talked to him about this. And I hope he has some surprises prepared for Magnus.
So Rakesh, all the best. He's playing for the Mumbai Movers team in Pro Chess League.
Yes.
And he would be facing Carlsen. In fact, I think 4 games will be played today. So Nubair Shah Sheikh, even Abhijit Kunte, all of these guys are playing Carlsen. So what Adhiban couldn't achieve, maybe they can do it.
Yes,
beat it.
for sure.
Okay, so Vishnu, the move on the board, Scandinavian.
Yeah.
What is your opinion about this line, and is it as good as Sicilian or E4, E5?
Of course it's not good, and
it's not good.
Yeah, it's just not good. It doesn't equalize. There's no doubt about that. Adhiban knows that, Carlsen knows that, I know that, and everybody knows that. So, but it doesn't matter so much again. And we didn't know what Carlsen would do. Yeah, the guy can play anything extremely well. So
right,
this was kind of another sleepless night. But the main point being this. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but.
You are. I mean, come on, you can say a few things. I will speak to Adhiban.
Yeah. The morning, I checked the Scandinavian and some other lines in the morning, and I told Adhiban, this is not okay. Some lines, this is not okay. I said, you know I'm playing that anyway, right? He said, I'm playing it anyway, right? Yeah, I know. I said. So, first we decided the opening, and it didn't matter if it equalized or not.
So there was no kind of this mental block, because I've seen many people, when they're preparing an opening and they reach a position where their opponent is getting an advantage, they lose their confidence and go to the game with that because you know that this system is better for your opponent. While Adhiban knew this, still he was going and playing against world number 1.
Yeah, in a sense it's better if you know the system is bad and you play it than playing a bad system and not knowing it's bad.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can be a little bit more objective when you know it's not that great, and you can sense that it's going horribly wrong and stop yourself. Okay, but Magnus drew against Nigel in this line a few years ago,
right,
in the same chorus. We thought, why not give it a try?
So Scandinavian is not great, but inside Scandinavian, what would you prefer? Queen into D5 or knight F6 that was played by Adhiban?
Do I really have to play the Scandinavian? If I have to...
I'm sure there are a few Scandinavian fans listening to this show.
Yeah, I'm sure too. But maybe knight F6.
Knight F6 is much better than Queen D5. I mean, not
it's just
much.
A different game, yeah?
Yeah.
Queen D5 is solid. Queen D5 is like a Caro-Kann structure.
Yes.
You'll get a structural position, but knight F6 is just provoking your opponent.
Right.
And that's what we wanted to do.
Correct. And after a very nice game, in fact, Adhiban got a excellent position, and I guess we go to move, I don't know which one was that, around, yeah, it was somewhere around here where he really started to tighten the screws. And tell us something about Queen G4,
Yeah, I was watching in the press room, and I saw Queen G4, yeah. I think people were also talking about it and saying Adhiban was winning or something. Yeah, and I saw that rookie one and something was coming, okay, but Yeah, I wasn't sure if he would play it. It's hard to sense the moment here. He told me he saw rook queen g4 after the game, but he missed rook e3.
No, I think he even said that he saw rook e3, but after
maybe
this,
he missed e3, yeah?
he missed. He thought it's a draw.
Yeah.
And he wanted to win,
Yeah.
but he missed this move, I guess.
Yeah, he missed d3, I think. So it's, and I think there was a little bit of time pressure. I'm not sure, but yeah, there were okay. It's, I think it's, yeah, it was a pity that he missed it.
Yes.
And what can I say? I mean, Carlsen next time, I guess.
Yeah.
And okay, it was. I thought this was just one moment in the game, and it was maybe okay. To me, my favorite moment in this game was not this. Can you go back a few moves?
Sure.
So when he played,
Somewhere here.
yeah. Okay, already I thought it's a two result position. Only black can win. Or I'm sorry. Yeah, my favorite moment was, yeah, when he played rook e8. So it's just it's just an announcement that he's, going to continue to press. Just taking on c1 is also completely equal.
Right.
But this is just announcing that I'm better and
Yes.
so
he's keeping the pieces on the board.
Yeah. So this is just an announcement that he's trying more.
And it's a nice feeling to tell the world champion that you're going to suffer now.
Yeah. Of course, everybody wants to do that.
Okay, wonderful. So this was a very nice game for Adhiban. Of course, he missed the win, but you all must have been elated with the result.
Yeah, Adhiban was definitely happy. Of course, you cannot complain after drawing with black.
Yes.
Against Carlsen. Yeah, sure, but we still had a good portion in the tournament, so we were happy about that. And we had a couple of rounds left, and we thought we could do something. Yeah,
and then the 12th round you drew against Anish Giri, which was, I guess, a fine result. You can't really hope for more against.
Yeah, it's okay, I guess, but yeah, maybe two unsuccessful games from my perspective was the one against Anish and one against Vei.
Right. Yeah, against Anish he was white but couldn't really press.
Yeah, and also Vei, I mean, I just, again, I said he won't go d4 actually, and I said Vei is not going to go d4, don't spend too much time there, and he went d4 and I was like, why did I go? So, yeah.
You felt bad at that point.
Absolutely, I mean, I'm like, did he just play d4? And okay, yeah, but you can say that. It's, yeah, that was true, but yeah, you held that game. That's also, it's not entirely because, okay, mostly it was not because of openings in this tournament, but his other strengths, I think, his success.
Sure. And I mean, the last round, he just crushed Rapo. And the point which I wanted to ask you is, did physical fitness come into the picture at any point?
Yes.
Because 13 rounds.
Yeah, he was doing some exercises. He was meditating, and he had a lot of mental energy left, I would say. He was mentally keeping himself fresh. Definitely it came in, I think. And maybe we didn't do so much work again in the Anish game because of that. We wanted to pause a little bit and see what happens. But Anish was too well prepared to do anything. And yeah, maybe other than that, the last game, I just pushed, we didn't work so much. I worked a little bit on this line, what we played, but otherwise, Rapo is pretty unpredictable, and I told him it's just unnecessary. Because it's the game against Rapo, we knew it was not going to be decided in the opening, and we knew that we were going to get our chances sooner or later in that game. So we were focusing more on resting and that during that game. But we did prepare that idea.
So you did the preparation. The tournament was excellent. I would say a huge success. But coming to you, do you at some point feel a little bit scared about working as a second? Because there are many instances where after helping a very strong player, your chess starts to go down. So did this thought come into your mind, and why does this happen?
I mean, it's just time, I think. You just don't have so much time for yourself if you work as a second. I think training other people would probably be a bigger hindrance for me than being a second. But I'm prepared to cope with it, and I'm doing my best to cope with it. So the one thing that is different from other professions, I would say, is that you cannot compromise on sleep in chess as a chess player. So I don't really have a social life anymore.
So this is very important. You cannot compromise on sleep.
Yeah.
And as a second, you have to sleep less. So
okay,
in a way,
if you're playing, you cannot. You have to be fresh. You should get enough sleep. And of course, it's healthier for the brain to get enough sleep in general. So, but if you're a second, you don't get sleep.
So you would recommend, at some point, doing such, I mean, not recommend, but would you not mind doing something like this again? Or would you like to focus on your chess because you yourself are an ambitious player?
Little bit of both. I mean, I don't know if I will do it full time, but if my schedule permits, I will of course definitely do it. I think, yeah, I'll definitely do it again. And it was okay. I mean, this time I had to skip Gibraltar for this, but I will find tournaments to play anyway. My rating is, I still have to get, for my rating I think there are still a lot of tournaments out there.
Right. Okay. I guess we should look at a few questions soon and then wrap up the show. But one last question which I wanted to ask you is that you went to this tournament, you saw all these super GMs playing. You yourself are a grandmaster. What is the difference between you and these guys, and what are the elements that make up this difference?
I mean, there is a lot of difference between me and the guys that played in Tata 8. So huge. I mean, I have quite a bit to catch up, I would say, because just the skill is different and understanding is different. And of course, they have they're all prodigies and they've developed quite fast. What else can I say? I mean, the basic premise of understanding is different.
They understand chess at a completely different level.
Yeah, at a higher level. Yeah, for sure.
And you need to work a lot for that.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get to some of the questions that we missed while we were doing this. One question that I had was by Atul, who says, I think we already covered it in our talk here, but still, how do you keep yourself motivated during bad times?
Yeah, like I said, it's just a mental thing, and you need to mentally prepare yourself for the bad time. Okay, there are definitely going to be bad times, and in a chess career it affects more because you could get beaten every day, and so you have to be mentally prepared for it basically. I mean, if you collapse for a bad day, then it's you're not going to go up. So basically I would say that is what makes or breaks a career or person.
How they take the losses,
yeah,
in a way. Okay. The next one is by Chandrai, who asks how to handle plus positions.
Okay. This is one for everybody, yeah?
Yeah, this is a very common thing. You get a plus position, you blunder and you lose. It happens all the time.
Just you have to see how the players with good technique handle it. Karpov, Carlsen. Study their games, I would say. And I think a lot of it has to do with prophylactic thinking. Just from my understanding, I would say. A lot of it has to do with prophylactic thinking. If you get a better position, I mean, it's more important to be prophylactic.
Right. So seeing the games and learning prophylaxis could help you to convert winning positions more.
Yeah.
Okay. There was one question by Chanakyan who says, what do you think is the most important qualities needed to succeed as a chess player?
Yeah, it depends. Okay. Qualities. Perseverance, like I said, for life and in chess, that is the most important quality in my opinion. And certain amount of discipline. Okay, I should take that off because a lot of chess players don't have that. But yeah, just a passion for the game, I think. Complete obsession towards the game.
Right.
And which chess is a flow activity. I mean, if you're looking at the time and stuff like that, it's not right. I mean, you could work for 14 hours and still be okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure every decent chess player has done that once in his life, and so you can just work for hours and not know that time has passed. If you should enjoy that thing, and you should be able to enjoy that. I think passion and perseverance.
So 2 P's for success. It's passion and perseverance.
Perseverance is more important than passion, in my opinion.
I know Vishnu is like a self-made GM in some ways, and he believes in hard work a lot. You know, he says talent doesn't exist. Yeah.
It exists, but it can be neutralized.
It can be neutralized by hard work. Right. One question was how to prepare. It's a huge question. Maybe you can answer it in short. How to prepare before, during, and after the tournament?
During, I don't. Depends on. You just have to check your opponent's game and decide what to play, I guess, and solve some tactical puzzles. If you are rusty, to keep yourself sharp. But okay, before it depends. You just on what level you are and stuff like that. You have to work on every part of the game before the tournament. And after the tournament, of course, you have to analyze your games, which is most important.
So you mean to say that analyzing your games is one of the most important?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could analyze 100 classics, but you learn from analyzing 10 of your games more. You analyze more from analyzing 10 of your own games.
Right. Okay. So one more is very specific now. Sandeep 1988 asks, in the Benko, after d4 and f6, c4, c5, d5, b5, cb5, a6, what do you think is a better move, b into a6 or b6? Let me just get the position on the board for everyone to just quickly have a look at this. So the question is whether ba6 or b6.
Yeah, so I mean it's I would say that instead of a better move, I would say that they're just different moves. They have different approaches. d6 is just more restrictive. Your opponent doesn't get so much activity, and you're just restricting your opponent more. It's more you can keep control of the position more. After ba6, objectively white I think is doing well, according to modern theory at least. So ba6 is possible, but you have to know how to neutralize your opponent's activity there.
Okay. So ba6 is more, you require more preparation in a way.
Yeah.
Concrete stuff. Okay. Another question by Aryaman is, my rating is 1750. What books would you suggest to improve endgame skills?
Okay, Dvorsky's Endgame Manual is what I read, and any book by Carsten Muller is great.
Yeah, I think you need to take some water. Talking since last 1 hour 10 minutes now.
Yeah.
So you were saying Dvorsky's Endgame Manual?
Carsten Muller's Fundamental Chess Endings. You could enjoy, I think you would enjoy watching the show Endgame Magic, which is also hosted by Carsten Muller.
And Vishnu was there last week.
Yeah, the week before this one.
On the cast. So you could go to ChessBase account if you are a member, and you could watch the entire show of Vishnu with Carsten Muller.
Yeah, he has made some 80 shows I think. I mean, in my show the positions were interesting, and I came back and watched some of the other shows as well. He has some very interesting positions.
Right. Yeah, he finds very nice positions. Yeah. Okay. So any more questions? One was, so does that, I mean, when we were discussing Carlsen's game, it was like, does that mean with good preparation you can play anything against anyone these days?
I guess so. I mean, I can't make a statistics out. You can't come to a conclusion with one game. One game is not good for statistics.
Right.
So, yeah, that's a tough question to answer. But it worked this time. We don't know what will happen next time.
Okay. And one last question that I can see here is by Harish Kumar, who says, how to remember all opening lines? Tell me the best way to prepare if we can't spend more time on openings.
If you can't spend more time on openings, you can just play openings that don't require you to prepare concrete lines, like the Rail Opus, Queen's Gambit Decline, or some kind of Slav. It's just maybe Queen's Gambit decline. All these classical openings, they don't require preparation at all. You can just look at the games and go and play.
Right.
And you just have to understand the concepts. With the white, it's the same thing. I mean, there are so many ways to play quiet nowadays. So knight f3, g3 or knight c4.
Or even the London system.
Even the London system, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, it's, if you can't memorize, if you don't have so much time, it's more practical to play lines that are classical, I would say. And yeah, strategical in nature.
Okay. Great. So I think we have gone through almost all the questions that were asked. I'm sorry if we missed the question in between, but I tried my best to look at everything. Vishnu, what is your next plan now? What are you going to do in the coming days?
I'm playing in the HT Bank Cup in Vietnam, which starts in 10 days, I think. So, and then I'm playing in the Sharjah International Open, in which I should add, I'm the 61st seed. Yeah, I would never.
Extremely strong tournament.
Yeah, my rating is 25-32 and I'm the 61st seed. So I was a little shocked with that, and yeah, I just wanted to share that. After that, I'll be playing in Australia in the Dobel Cup, and then maybe Asian Continental or Zalakaros in Hungary. I have not decided.
So truly, I would say a multi-talented personality, because he plays chess. He prepares, he was the second of Adhiban. He teaches also young kids, and he also analyzes games for ChessBase and writes reports, the opening surveys for ChessBase magazine and New in Chess.
Yeah.
Your life is chess.
Not, I do other stuff also, but yeah, most of it. I mean, it's just, you just have to eliminate the other unnecessary things you do, and it's okay. I don't watch any TV shows and nothing, I don't do anything else that is not useful. Yeah.
I think the viewers won't like what I'm going to say. I mean, not the viewers would like it. Vishnu is not going to like. I was just with Vishnu a few minutes ago before the session began, and we were having dinner, and he ordered a drink, and he said, don't put sugar in it. And I asked him why, and Vishnu said, I never eat sugar because it's not good for a chess player.
For a human being.
So that's your discipline level.
I don't think it's anything tremendous at all.
Yeah, but not eating sugar is I think quite a big sacrifice. I mean, not a sacrifice, but strong discipline.
Maybe for a chess player, but any average athlete in a different sport doesn't eat sugar. He wouldn't even consider it. Consider that as a serious thing. People wouldn't consider that as a serious thing. Maybe for chess it looks a bit weird, but
you consider chess players as athletes?
In some sense it is a sport, yeah.
Right.
And I started late, and in a certain sense I knew it would take me time to become strong. So for longevity I do these things.
Yes, and I hope that this longevity continues, you keep progressing, and you are on 2534 now, and by the end of this year you reach 2600.
Yeah, I hope to do that too, and I hope to play enough tournaments to do that. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Vishnu, for your time. I think we had a wonderful show, getting insights into the mind of the second of Adhiban, who played a phenomenal tournament, and also Vishnu had some very nice points to share with you. I hope you found this show beneficial.
Yeah, I hope you had a good look into what happened at the top level. It was a beautiful experience for me, and I wanted to share it with Sagar and ChessBase viewers. So I had fun here, and hope you did too.
Yes, and we will have Vishnu soon back in Mumbai.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
Thank you all, and see you soon for the next ChessBase India show.
Bye guys.